Great. So this question of build versus buy is a really interesting one and an important one to discuss. I think first of all, it's really important to acknowledge it's not necessarily a binary wholesale choice that we're making. It's not a dichotomy. It's really dependent on more granular factors regarding the agency who's making the decision and the solution being discussed. So I think it's important to have like a granular conversation around this. Some of the factors that an agency might take into account when making this decision. They may want to build this if they have the bandwidth to do this, the time available to do this. So financial supervisory authorities' #1 mandate is to supervise the financial sector in their jurisdiction. Any time spent managing a software project or scoping a software project or designing this is time away from their core mandate, which may be worthwhile investment in some cases, but really needs to be taken into account. Similarly, time to market, time to launch is a really important factor. So if you need this thing launched in a month, maybe that's something that you need to pick up off the shelf at this point. If an agency needs to launch this in 18 months, that's a very different conversation. There may be time to explore building this on their own or going through a formal procurement process and working hand in hand with a vendor. A third factor is technical capacity. So the ability to actually execute on the vision of what's involved in the SupTech engagement or SupTech project being discussed. If that capacity exists in-house, that may be an opportunity to build this. If not, it may be necessary to go outside and find another vendor or third party who can help to execute on this. I think lastly is maintenance. This is something that's often left out of the conversation, but really a critical component of this conversation as well. So once the project is launched, once the SupTech application is launched, that's not the end of the road. It's one thing to put out something like an API, which is a relatively static set of rules for ingesting information or data. It's another thing to launch a predictive machine learning model that's dependent on alignment with reality. So reality is constantly evolving. A model needs to evolve with that. If that model stays static, it begins to drift away from reality and introduce some bias in how it's making decisions. So this is a really important factor is whether an agency is able to maintain from a technical standpoint as well as understanding the traditional maintenance of software like patching, updating, making sure that this is continuously running and not having downtime. So that's factors to consider when trying to decide whether to build this in-house or not. Effectively, as we've discussed a little bit already, you go out and buy when those factors aren't available in-house, when any one of those factors isn't available in-house. So if the timing isn't right, if there's not the right capacity internally, if there's not an appetite or ability to manage this system once it's been launched, these are all indicators that it may be worth looking outside to bring in some help. So that's kind of the factors that we see being discussed when these decisions are being made. In terms of the status quo, in terms of what's happening right now, the Cambridge SupTech Lab last year launched the State of SupTech Report 2022, which included a study of supervisors that showed that actually most supervisors, most financial authorities globally, in around 146 agencies that were involved, are procuring solutions from outside. Most of them are buying off-the-shelf solutions or procuring vendors to build solutions for them. Not all of them, there's plenty who are building in-house as well, but the majority. And coupled with this, we see in most financial authorities kind of to-do lists, their roadmaps, #1 or 2 is technical capacity building. So I think these really go hand in hand. As we see the technical capacity increase, we may see additional in-house projects happening. So this is really something that's happening right now in terms of the status quo. What's really exciting is to think about the dynamics of this space as well. This isn't a static equation. Agencies are changing, the solutions they're working on are changing, and market effects are changing as well. So in terms of dynamics, we see initiatives like the EU SDFA, the session that we're at this week, building up very deep technical capacity in AI and machine learning. At the Cambridge SupTech Lab, we're also launching courses and running courses to build the technical capacity of supervisors with the intention of launching SupTech solutions at the end of the trainings. So this is really interesting in terms of technical capacity building. It would be wonderful to see how this evolves over time. Additionally, there's marketplace acceleration happening. So additional vendors entering this market from the RegTech space, additional agencies who are willing and eager to go out and find solutions that are at the cutting edge and bring those in-house in a methodical way. And finally, I think we see a lot of really interesting solutions in terms of software being made available, technical resources being made available for financial authorities. Things like open source software, open data models, open access to different sets of data that are relevant to financial supervision. So with all of these ingredients coming into play, it will be really interesting to see how this changes the equation of build versus buy as financial authorities and those working with them analyze these sets of criteria.